When I was 10, my parents divorced. Many people have parents who go through the difficulties of a divorce, but mine was different. My mom told my little brother, sister, and I that my dad was sick, but I didn't quite understand. He didn't look very sick to me. My mom told us that we had to leave our home and live with our grandparents for a while, so we did. We went back to our old house to gather our things, but when we arrived, everything was gone except broken glass covering the floors and some holes in the walls. Our dad had taken it all. Everything from the television sets to the alarm clocks were gone. We were left with nothing and had to start fresh. Our grandparents bought us a house so that we could start our new lives together. We moved in and slowly buying new things to put in our home with what little money we had. Our new home had normal walls and normal doors. Doors and walls without holes from Dad and windows that were in one piece. Mom went out to find a new job since her old business ended along with a divorce, and my siblings and I went to school. After a year passed, we still hadn't seen our dad until one day, Mom told us that we had to start going to therapy. I didn't like the idea, but I knew that Mom knew best. The therapist told me about my father's sickness and how the mental illness that he had was his reason for hurting Mom and us kids. She said it wasn't safe for us to see Dad right now and that he was in an institution for hurting himself. I remember the way I felt that day, knowing that my own dad had suddenly become a huge mystery to me. Where was he now? Did he miss us? Was he still dangerous? The therapist told us that we were all going to see Dad for the first time in a year. I was scared and I didn't know how to react. She told us that someone would be in the room to keep us safe and that Dad could not hurt us in the special room. A year later, we silently walked into the blank room with a woman dressed in white. She was there to observe how the visit went. I took note that this room had no windows, just a small white box with a chair. Dad looked different. His hands were cut up and he had a huge scar that nearly covered the top of his head. He ran up to us with presents, gave us each a hug, and told us how much he missed us. That day was the first time I had ever seen my dad cry. An hour passed and our visiting time was up. The lady told us to say our goodbyes and she quickly escorted us from the room. Mom was there as soon as we got out and we ran to give her a hug. We cried the entire way home, unable to understand why Dad looked and acted the way he did that day. Months of therapy passed and it was time to see Dad again. Only this time we were informed that we would see Dad once a week for an hour for the next year. We played games with our dad mostly and sometimes talked about school, until the one day that everything changed. On this day, Dad told us that we had a new baby brother, Caleb, and that he wanted to meet us. He showed us a picture and told us that he would try and bring him in to our next visit. I was confused. Why did Dad have another baby? I talked to Mom about it and she told us that the baby boy was his and Karen's baby. Karen was a 17-year-old girl that used to live with us. I called her my big sister. Again, I was confused. Another year passed in visitation and things began to change once again. We were given a new lady to be with us and Dad, only now we were allowed to leave the white room as long as she came along with us. Dad took us in his car for the first time in 3 years, and we went to all kinds of places. We got to see our cousins and aunt and Grammy again, which made me the happiest I had been in a while. Time passed and we were then allowed to go to Dad's, only this time without the clipboard lady. We were really scared, but Mom gave me a picture of her in the shape of a heart to keep in my pocket. Things went okay, but as time went on, I hated going to Dad's. Karen and Dad had 2 more babies, and things over there didn't feel like home anymore. Eventually, I had to be forced to go to Dad's house. I never wanted to go over there without the clipboard lady. More time passed, and Dad's house reminded me more and more of our old house. Broken glass, shattered in the same way our family was because of Dad's sickness. I wish I could say this story had a happy ending, but I'm afraid it's the exact opposite. As I grew older, I begged my dad to get help and he refused. He dropped out of drug counseling and refused to take needed medication for his illness, and as a result, I stopped seeing my dad when I was 17. I miss my dad. I miss the way he used to laugh and smile with me. I want the sickness to go away, but I've learned that you can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped. I will always love my dad because he will always be my dad. But sometimes you just have to pick up the broken pieces by yourself and find people that can help you glue them back together. I'm happy to say that my family, friends, and boyfriend have helped me to put my life back together the way I want and need it to be, and I couldn't be any happier with the way the final product turned out.
Said it's too late to apologize.